And that concludes our module on Advanced Design, Part 1. We learned about the complexities of a parent-child hierarchy for reporting, with its variable levels and additive and semi-additive account types that affect how account values display over time or across accounts. To make this type of parent-child hierarchy work, we need to configure account intelligence. And an easy way to do this is to use the Business Intelligence Wizard to define account intelligence, where we map the built-in attribute types to the attribute types in our dimension. We also define the mapping of account types, such as assets and liabilities and so on, to the account types defined for the database. We can also define the aggregate functions associated with each account type, such as last non-empty for balance sheet accounts or sum for revenue accounts. Unary operators allow us to control how analysis services aggregate sibling members to derive a value for the parent level. There are 5 possible operators: a plus, a minus, a multiply, and a divide, or a tilde to do nothing. The aggregation occurs in sequence from the first sibling to the last sibling, so it's important to get the sequence of members correct by setting the order by property. We also need to consider whether the top-level members of a hierarchy roll up to a grand total value or not. Essentially, this property determines whether the hierarchy has an all level. Because a parent-child hierarchy does not have a fixed set of levels, Analysis Services assigns generic level names which we can override by using a naming template. We can also configure a default member, although this property is not specific to a parent-child hierarchy. Analysis Services uses the default member to control the values to display when we don't include the parent-child hierarchy on rows, columns, or filters when querying the cube. Another important property is the custom rollup, although we might not need it very often. We use it to define a calculation to use for a member value if we cannot store that value directly in a fact table. This is usually because the calculation requires specific aggregations at query time. And last, we reviewed the pros and cons of the parent-child hierarchy. In particular, it's important to keep in mind the potential performance problems if there are over 10,000 members in the parent-child hierarchy. In that case, it might be worth the effort to naturalize or flatten the hierarchy into a fixed number of levels. And here are some resources you might find useful. Now, even though I've included a link for the Analysis Services 2008 Performance Guide, that information is still applicable to Analysis Services 2008 R2 and Analysis Services 2012 Multidimensional.